Hey, it's America's Supermom. Thank you for joining me on my podcast. This series is the Corona Chronicles. I created this so that we would have an outlet of positivity in the midst of a lot of negativity. You know what I'm talking about. All the news, the fear around this virus, how it can affect us, what the new normal is looking like, and how so many things have changed that a lot of people feel like um, it is the end of the world, so to speak. So, this podcast was created so that those of us who have hope, who are willing to move forward with this new normal and innovate new things that will help us to be creative and positive. That is what this platform is for us to come together and share that positivity and that light with those who may need it. So if you're interested in sharing your insight, please reach out because we can never have enough positive news. So sit back and enjoy the show.
I want to thank you guys for joining me today. I'm really excited about my next guest, Lindy Chapman. We actually have not met in person, but we have connected on LinkedIn. And I guess my name I would say for her is that she's the online LinkedIn trailblazer for real estate. That's where I first noticed her was she was one of the few people who started the linked on live aspect to LinkedIn, and she has just been moving and shaking ever since. So I'm really excited to have her here today, and she also connected me with one of her co-hosts sometimes, Caroline Carter, who has also been on the show. So, needless to say, she's got a wealth of knowledge, and really excited to have her here to share some of her insights. So at this time, I'm going to give her the opportunity to give us a little introduction about her before we get into the interview.
Well, thank you very much, Lachelle. It's nice to be here today. And if I remember correctly, and I was trying to remember for sure, did we meet through Bob Sager's group?
Actually, you know what? I don't think I've been a part of his group, but every time I went, I didn't know you were part of that. So yeah, he's a great connector also. That's for
Well,
sure.
I was probably on the call, and I was not as fascinating of a person on the call as you, because I do remember you because of all of your kids and your story.
Okay.
And I was hats off to you.
Thank you. Thank you.
But yeah, so I'm Lindy Chapman, and I have recently relocated to Boston. This was our 10th corporate move, which is how I got into the business of helping people, consulting with people on how to navigate the real estate and the relocation industry.
That's awesome. And so, what a time to be relocating. Okay.
No kidding. It is 2020 was not the year to do it. You would be surprised at how many people have relocated during 2020 or had relocations that have been put on hold, and chaos that can create, especially when you have kids and a spouse. It can be quite challenging for sure.
Yes. So I guess the first thing I would say is, what tips, tricks, or insight hacks would you be willing to share with the audience about moving during this time? Because, I just know right now I'm thinking, man, I'm juggling just with being able to stay at home and what I have to deal with every day. So I couldn't imagine adding the element of moving during a time like this.
Well, thank goodness we moved as empty nesters. So that was helpful. However, our two New York City kids moved in with us in March, so which has been quite interesting. They're great kids. We've enjoyed having them around, but we had sold a 5-bedroom house in the suburbs of Dallas and thought that we would enjoy our first year of empty nesting in a 2-bedroom high-rise in downtown Boston. So, pardon the pun, but hindsight's 2020, right?
Right.
So, but it's been good. And I think it's just different stages of, whatever different stages of that you're in life. And it was much easier to relocate this time because we weren't having to look at schools and different things. And that's really what I'm trying to create a connection, to create a community to help support people, because there's so many things involved. Even with us, our companies usually spent upwards of $100,000 on our moves, which honestly is way overspent. A lot of that is because so much is still spent on traditional real estate agent fees, which the real estate agents aren't getting. And that's another long story that I won't go in today. But there's a lot of wasted money in relocation and a lot of services that are needed that aren't provided. And so I'm trying to fill in the gap. But as far as tips, I mean, it's finding those boots on the ground where you're going. It's finding people to get connected with in a new city. One of the companies that I consult for is called Pivot, Pivt, and it's an app that employees or employers and relocation management companies are using to help their employees find home in a new city. And that's what I always said my job was as a real estate agent in Dallas. I worked mainly with relocation clients. And I always said when it was a husband and wife moving, and one of them was moving for their job and the other one was tagging along and having to look for a career, I would tell the employee, you're not my client. Your spouse, your partner is my client.
Wow.
Because that was who needed to be moved. The other person has new responsibilities, a new job, a new team, a lot to learn. But it's that spouse, that partner, the family that needs to find home in a new city. And that's more than a house. Right. It's the community. It's the schools. It's finding out what area. Dallas, I always talk about, it's the size of Connecticut. And so you really need somebody local to help you get plugged in. So if a client was looking to move somewhere apart from where I specialize, I would then help them find the right agent, which is one of the faults with our industry. If you're looking to buy a home or relocating, you're kind of stuck with one agent, and that doesn't always serve the consumer very well.
I love that. And, so knowing how you're able to assume the client being the spouse of the person who is being relocated,
yes.
That is really knowing your market. So what tips would you give somebody? Right now, a lot of people are switching industries. They are doing a different aspect of their industry because we're pivoting from face-to-face to virtual. So what tips would you give them about knowing who your audience is? Because it's so clear based on that example you gave that you knew who that audience was and what some of those pain points were.
You've got to have empathy. And if you've not done something that your client is doing, go out and talk to people that have. I think that's what's been most interesting to me, getting into the real estate industry as an agent back in Dallas and hearing brokers and managers talk about the problems. And they were talking about the agent's problem or the broker's problem. I was in a big relocation or real estate conference in January. And all the problems they talked about were the agents and the brokers, and not the actual client and the frustration that clients have. And so I would say in any industry, you've got to step in your client's shoes. There's nothing better than empathy. And you may not be able to completely have empathy. Like, for example, in relocation, a lot of times a real estate agent has lived in the same city most of their life or all of their adult life. It's why they do real estate, right? But you need to step out and think about, so how does this message that I've been giving for 20 years in real estate, how does today's client see it? What would it be like for me if I was buying a house today? What would frustrate me about this industry? And really step outside of your role, whatever that is, and think about it.
That's awesome.
And, it's just seeing it. I mean, it's just taking whatever it is you do and think about it from the consumer's point of view.
Yeah.
And make sure you're solving their problems and not your problem.
I love that, because we can get tunnel vision quick, you can't see the forest for the trees. So this is so true. And I love the element, like you said, the agents and the brokers are communicating with each other because, they spend a lot of time with each other doing what they do every day. So sometimes you can,
And you've not been the client for a long time. I mean, I was in this discussion with somebody recently and they didn't, they couldn't understand my frustration. They thought that I was being really hard on the industry. And I just said, when was the last time you were a client? You can't discount that. I mean, it's just the consumer's behaviors and needs have changed because of technology.
Mhm.
right? We've got everything we need in the palm of our hand when we're looking to buy a house. And when we're selling a house, we're questioning, why am I having to pay 3% to a buyer's agent? That doesn't make sense. My agent found the buyer, right? And
Mhm.
now I'm having to pay 3% to an agent who's fighting me on my price, asking me for unnecessary repairs in order to somehow justify the $20,000 that I have to offer to get
Mm.
my house shown.
Yeah. That's
And
that's
the the
good
real estate
point.
agents, again, they haven't. I had an agent about a year ago, and he mentioned to me, I was showing one of his properties, and he mentioned to me that he was going to be selling his house soon, and it was in the city, a neighborhood that I had a client that wanted to buy a house. I said, oh, let me know when it's in MLS. He goes, well, I'm not going to put it in MLS because I really don't want to pay a buyer's agent. And I just looked
Wow.
at him. I'm like, do you hear what you just said? Agents get so frustrated with clients for complaining about the cost of real estate fees,
Mhm.
but he didn't want to pay them either.
Right.
I don't know.
So true.
It's
So
so
true.
interesting, right?
Yeah.
And
So,
then relocation, it's the same thing. So I've kind of pivoted from being a real estate agent. I've sold a few homes this year, but it's more as a consultant. Like I just helped a lady last week. She had a home to sell. She had talked to a 6% agent, and I laughed at her. I said, why are you going to pay 6%? It was a little starter home that her son owned,
mm,
and it needs some work. I said, really, you should put it out first to investors, because it's really a home that investors would love to get a hold of, minus that 6%. And so you can come up with a price you want to net and sell it that way. And she didn't think she could. She's under contract within
mhm.
a few days. It was just a matter of, knowing the questions to ask. And she knows the real estate industry
Oh, yeah.
but it's just strategy.
Mhm.
Going
I
back
love
to talking about with switching from real estate to relocation. Relocation, I found out, was the same way. I would be in relocation seminars or conferences, and they would talk about the client's problems. Well, a relocation management company's client is the employer. And it was kind of a
mm,
light bulb moment again of, I'm not the client. I'm just kind of a consumer that's part of the client's problem. And so
mhm.
it was interesting to kind of begin to see things from the business side of things.
Mhm. I love that. And I mean, the fact that you're able to have that perspective has really, I'm sure, been pivotal with you being able to transition, as you have just with your own move and then the face of being a lot more present online as opposed to the face to face aspect.
Well, desperation creates desperate measures, right? I didn't want to be online. I didn't want to create video. I don't normally say yes to podcasts. I don't like being interviewed. I love to interview people because then they're talking and I get to just listen.
Right.
So, but when you move and when you have to recreate your career and then you have to recreate it again in the
Mhm.
middle of COVID, you just do what you have to do. But I do think personal experience is, it's one of the best business models to base a business on.
So
Because
true.
I think we can find the passion. We see problems that aren't being solved.
That is so true. Now, so you are just like a great connector, and I just say that because, as I watch your lives, the people who are making the comments, you're engaging with the people that are on the live with you. So, what tips would you give people about building relationships and networking in this virtual space?
Well, I have to say, I think you do that as well as anybody. So I'm not sure I can give any tips that you can't give better. I think it starts with authenticity, right? It
Mhm.
starts with being authentic. And, and like I said, I love to see what other people are doing. I love females that support females. I
Mhm.
love to see people that are better at something than I am. I
Mm.
think it's one of the reasons I got out of real estate. There are a lot of great real estate agents out there. And I just realized we didn't need another real estate agent. We really needed to help somebody that could help steer people to the agents that were going to be able to best serve a client's
Mm.
needs. And for example, like somebody that's the right agent for you might not be the right agent for somebody across town,
Mhm.
or for selling a property, just because every seller, every buyer is unique and has unique needs.
Mhm.
And I love strategies, and I love people that are doing things and can do things that I can't.
Mm. That's good.
So I think it's just been, and I have a journalism background. So for me, it's a
Oh.
lot of fun to dive in and to interview people that I may or may disagree with, or it may not be the way I do business,
Mhm.
or it may be the way I think they're doing it better than I am, and to be able to interview them and get them and give them a platform to share their stories.
I love that. That is so good. Now, so you also, in addition just to moving, you're coming from the South to the East Coast. So, it's like a different culture.
Oh,
I'm
yes, yes.
originally from Indiana, and, moving to the South was definitely a transition. So, what tips would you give somebody about not being stuck in the old way of doing things
Mhm.
and being able to embrace change a little bit easier?
Gosh, that's a great question. I moved from Alabama to Chicago when I was 18 for college.
Mhm.
That was the first time I realized I had an accent. I didn't know. Um, and I think not having stereotypes. I think that's
Mm.
one of the biggest things that I've learned is
Mhm.
that we have a tendency to think of a city or an area or a region or a country as being one way. You can
Mm.
find anybody you want to. You can find people in those cities and in those towns and in those countries that will prove your stereotypes, or you can find people that will oppose them and
Mhm.
disprove them. And so I would
Mhm.
just say, go in with an open mind and look for the people that are different than you. Look to learn from them. I think you'll find pleasant
Mhm.
surprises, and
Mhm.
and just be open.
I love that. And so you're just quite a sight on LinkedIn. What are some
It's
tips
in
that you could
again, it's
give people?
desperation, Michelle.
But hey, it's we can say that, but you're either doing it or not doing it, right? That's where we find out because everybody has a formula, they've got a system, but a lot of us aren't doing it, right? So
Yeah.
give the audience some things that they can kind of begin doing. They might be in this space, they want to kind of build their presence on LinkedIn, some ways that you started or something they could easily implement today.
One of the best pieces of advice that I got when I got started on LinkedIn, and it was after I'd had a manager tell me that I couldn't do relocation and I had actually no business helping with relocation at the company. So
Mm.
I left and I thought, I know relocation. So I just started writing articles about what I knew, what I was an expert
Mm.
at. And it wasn't that I was an expert real estate agent. It was that I was an expert client.
Oh.
And then I did a little LinkedIn course with a gentleman in Dallas, and he told me to do three things. He said, like something every day, comment on
Mm.
something every day, and share something every day. And so I just started doing that. And that was the way I started to grow my connections and finding people that were like minded, or people that had interesting ideas or were writing interesting articles. And then I started to grow this really incredible connection in Dallas of LinkedIn. Um, I don't know if you want to use the word influencers, but they had really made a name
Mm.
for themselves in the Dallas community through LinkedIn, and really
Mhm.
internationally as well. And then started going to LinkedIn locals. So I would say, anybody that's moving, of course, that's been the sad thing for me with COVID is not being able to go to things or organize things. But I have found some online things that have been really
Mhm.
powerful that are similar to a LinkedIn local of community thought leaders. But
Mhm.
that LinkedIn local was so key to really take those connections that I'd made online, offline. And
Mhm.
and what I found so unique, I think, about LinkedIn compared to Facebook, which I rarely do anything on Facebook and don't even look for me on Instagram, it's so business and entrepreneurial minded.
Mhm.
It
Mhm.
really crosses all lines, and it tends to not be political. It just tends to be very business focused. It's getting a little bit
Mhm.
less so in terms of like a little more personal stuff that's coming in, but there's such an entrepreneurial side to it. And
Mhm.
I think, especially in the entrepreneurial world, we all know how hard that is. And there's a
Mhm.
willingness to support one another. And a
I
lot of times I didn't find that like in Facebook groups and stuff. I mean, maybe not the groups, but just in Facebook in general, or on just my
Mhm.
profile page. But on LinkedIn, I really found a community of people that were willing to collaborate and that were willing
Mhm.
to promote whatever it was you were doing and encourage you. But I think it started with just liking a post, commenting on a post, and sharing something every day.
That's a great,
It was simple. And then somebody challenged me to do video, and I did video, and that was crazy the way that opened up doors, and ended up getting the attention of LinkedIn in New York City, their video team, and who actually right after the company that I've been working for that told me I really had no business being a real estate agent. And I laughed, and I actually did really, really well my first year, having gone and hit my goals. But they had me speak on a real estate panel to the city of Dallas. So I think I love to prove the naysayers wrong. But I think it's staying in your lane. I have a friend, Bruce Waller, who wrote a book called Find Your Lane. And that was also a pivotal book for me. But find your lane and just play in it. Don't try to play in somebody else's lane. Don't look to compete with somebody else in a different lane. Find people that are in a different lane and let them push you.
Yeah, that's just great advice, because, as long as you stay in your lane, then the other things that go along with you doing your whatever skill, talent, trait, or whatever, you could focus more on mastering that and just find the best vehicle to use to market or promote or different things like that. So that makes a lot of sense and gives people a lot of clarity when it comes to positioning yourself to move forward. So that's some great advice. Now, so in terms of follow-up, we know this is very important, with, like you said, taking those connections offline. What is a good follow-up strategy that you've used in order to build your connections and network?
That's a great question. Again, if I could, before COVID, it was a little different. It was getting together for coffee or going to a LinkedIn local, or if they're in it, if anybody that's listening to this, look for those in your town when they get started. And some of them have taken them online, but those are great opportunities. Doing a Zoom call, a virtual call, and finding ways to collaborate. There's so many great ways to collaborate with people, and I'm a connector by nature. You are as well, it seems. And I think if you give, it eventually comes back to you. So I'm always enjoying it, and I do it with real estate agents. I'm always telling people, about other great real estate agents. I don't see them as my competitors. I see them as if our goal is really to take care of the client, or really to take care of not even our client, right? Just to take care of people, then that's what we do. And I know that's your focus.
Yeah. And I think, we recognize if you take that mindset bigger, to recognize that there are so many people in this world, you definitely get a quick image to say, I can't do it by myself. So I have to create a team of like-minded people in my tribe that can help me accomplish this, because it's too much for one person to bear.
Absolutely.
So I love that. So what are some things that you do in your routine that kind of helps you be able to adjust to new things? Like we've seen just with technology, when it comes to real estate, you can't go and look at the property face to face. You're doing virtual open houses and things like that. So just being able to pivot in general with all the new things that take place in whatever industry, what are some things that you do in your routine that kind of keeps you open and flexible for that?
I've not had much routine this year, Lachelle. No. I don't know if you saw one of my posts this week. We moved in January, and then I was in New York most of March and February. And then, of course, COVID hit, and then we had a pipe leak, and we just had to move out of our unit while they replaced all the floors, and we're moving back in this week. So I don't know that I'm a great one to talk about routine, but I think it's seeing the silver linings, right? It's looking at the opportunities. I mean, in January, I came here with an idea of what my business would be, and it would be a relocation management company, basically different, more like what we had when we were in Germany. But then COVID happened, and all these RMCs are laying off everybody. which really
Mm-hmm.
creates an interesting dynamic, because now you've got these people that have been laid off that have, years and decades of experience in relocation management companies. And what do you think they're doing? They're starting relocation management companies of their own, small little boutique kind of,
Mm-hmm.
or they're, so, and then there's not a whole lot of business right now. So that I had to pivot.
Mm-hmm.
But really, I think my gifts and my strengths lie more in being a consultant, being a strategist. So
Mm-hmm.
it's just pivoting and finding new opportunities, and being
Mm-hmm.
open, and just always knowing that God kind of opens up the doors as they're supposed to be open, and looking for those, as opposed to trying to make things happen, or wallowing in the fact that the way you thought it was going to be isn't happening.
Mm. Yeah, that's a good one to remind us of, because many of us, you look at it, and it's some of these people that have been in their industries for like 20, 25 years, and they were looking forward to retirement, then boom, they've got to learn a new skill, trade, or whatever, and having that moment to just really be patient and understanding about that can be kind of overwhelming.
It totally is. And I totally,
Mhm.
even though I'm getting out of the real estate business, I talk to real estate agents all the time, and they need to create some new strategies. They need to find a new niche. They need to define maybe a
Mhm.
different niche or niche, as they say
Mhm.
in Texas. And
Mhm.
but they need to define, what specialize in something, and find out what are the new opportunities. What is this creating, for the consumer? And then they may need to start looking at their business model and go, okay, is this working for me to be paying 40%, 30% to a broker? Now
Mm.
that there's some other companies that are out there that are disrupting the way this is done, some ways that maybe I could do this and better serve my clients and keep a more consistent stream of income going.
Mhm.
So it's an opportunity, right? To pivot, to stay ahead of the curve, to find opportunities. It's not easy. It's tough.
Right. Yeah.
It's challenging, but those opportunities are there.
So true. And I mean, I know I've gotten a crash course of, knowing what my priorities are. You know what I mean? From what I'm spending money on to how I'm spending my time. I mean, I've just learned so much. I mean, it's just like I said, it's just a crash course in everything you need to know to be a successful business person, 10 years cramped into one. You know what I mean?
Well, if you don't mind me turning the tables, I would love to hear kind of what are some of your big takeaways from 2020 and what you've learned both as a mom and as a business person.
Yes, I think the first thing is being flexible. I always thought I had an element of flexibility, but I definitely have learned that if you have a goal, it is something you can't define actually how you're going to accomplish the goal being the way that you planned it. So we've learned, especially with homeschooling, that, we had this thing, we're going to have school from 9 to 2, and it's going to be every day. And that went out the window quick, because some of my kids they had this period where they were up like at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. They couldn't sleep,
Mm,
dealing with the first impact with COVID. So, we just had to learn, okay, we need to get each daily assignment done. So that looked like them having more control of their day as long as they accomplish the work that was required for that day. So giving them a little bit of leeway to and confidence to be able to plan their own schedules as long as they were accomplishing the goals that we had together as a family. That was one thing. And open communication. I couldn't stress that enough. Some of my kids had panic attacks, they had nightmares. I mean, you name it. It was a bunch of different behind the scenes negative stuff that sometimes people don't talk about, that we had to be open and have those discussions.
And that's so powerful for other mothers to hear you talk about that and to say that. Because
Hmm.
sometimes we think we need to hide those things because somebody might think that we are an imperfect parent or have imperfect kids.
Right.
And sometimes I will admit that I have probably ignored things in my own children that I shouldn't have ignored, just because it's like, oh, if I don't rock the boat, maybe they're fine.
Right.
Maybe they really
Right.
are fine.
Exactly. Like it's going to just disappear. That's one of those I dream a genie
Yeah.
type mindsets,
Yeah.
right?
As long as I don't dig too deep, everything's good.
So true. But I think, the best way to describe it for me with this whole thing of the rug being pulled out from underneath us is I feel like everybody in the whole world feels what my life has been like during my times of depression.
Mm.
Because I battled with that for 13 years and ended up having 3 hospitalizations in the process. And the things that I felt like I was drowning under, and just the things that I was doing so much like a robot, with people pleasing and no boundaries, seeking validation, everything being outward. I have just learned how to embrace being me and really be authentic, stop wearing all these masks and having real good conversations with people. And it just has really prepared me for right now. I feel so good to be able to give value from a place of really true and truly understanding what a lot of people are experiencing. So for me, I think that's just been valuable. Didn't like it when I was going through the trials, right?
Right. Yeah, but what a ministry that gives you to people. And again, that empathy. And I go back
Mhm.
to empathy is everything. No matter what
Mhm.
you do, if you can empathize and encourage people from that, and take your
Mhm.
own experiences and encourage other
Mhm.
people that are going through that same thing. Because when you're going through something like that, to have somebody that's been there and come through to the other side to say, you're going
Mhm.
to be okay, you can do this, I did it,
Yeah.
that's huge.
Yeah, and I think the element too of like creativity. I mean, like I see what you and Caroline have done when it comes to the conversations, the guests you're able to have, because you have a mindset that if you think that you want to create something, you want to be innovative and collaborate, you
Hmm.
come up with new ideas. You're not
Yeah.
pigeonholed doing the same thing over and over again. There's so much more richness and joy with waking up every day thinking that you're really actually going to be providing value.
Purpose is a huge motivator.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
Anytime we go through something that's rough, it can do one of two things. It can destroy us, or it can cause us to pick ourselves up and create a purpose within us. So I love that you've been able to use those experiences to
Mhm.
to really have a mission.
Yeah, it really has been a blessing. So, and meeting great people like yourself, okay? Because I'm
Great.
telling you, it makes a difference the type of people that you gravitate towards, because environment can be a major, major downfall for you if you don't have the right people in your corner.
Oh,
So this
no
definitely is
doubt.
true.
No doubt. And kind of when I started on this journey, I kind of began to figure that out. And I started
Mhm.
letting go of those relationships where I was either trying to please or I was afraid of what they thought.
Mhm.
I remember being in a happy hour group one day, and the women looked at me and they said, "Lindy, you work too hard. You think you work
Mhm.
too much." And I thought, that's not. If you're not supporting me in what I do or chat or cheering me on, you
Mhm.
know, because I've missed 3 happy hours,
Right.
whatever it was that I had done that, But we need people in
Yeah.
our lives that cheer us on and
Mhm.
support us in our efforts.
So true. Yeah. And you can accomplish so much more with so much ease. It's like I don't have to compete with you. You're doing what you do. I'm just giving you a platform for other people to see your shine. That's the way I look at it.
I like
So if
that.
we all do that,
Yeah.
we
Which
can
is
get
happening with Caroline and I, because we just took our complementary stories and complementary things that we were doing, which we could have looked at as being competitive.
mhm.
But I think two's better than one, right? And
Right.
so the times that we've collaborated and stuff have been really fun, and fun to see the opportunities that have created out of that.
So true. So the best way for the audience to get a hold of you.
Find me on LinkedIn. That's what my
Awesome.
children say.
Yeah,
Um,
that's it.
So yeah, connect with me on LinkedIn. You can actually follow hashtag Relo Talk to find the LinkedIn Live interviews that I do.
Mhm.
My website is under construction, but it's lindychapman.com,
Mhm.
or Lindy at lindychapman.com is my email. So I
Okay. Awesome.
would
And
love to
then
connect
what?
on LinkedIn, and I love to engage with people when they're posting and to encourage them as they begin their journey. And because it was a game changer for me. Again, I was 20 years as a
Mhm.
mom, stay-at-home mom, homeschool mom, moving every 1 to 4 years. I had to recreate my career, starting
Mhm.
about 4 or 5 years ago, and it was a game changer in allowing me to be able to do that.
Mhm. And hey, I just say, it's never too late to get started. So many of us kind of pigeonhole ourselves and say, well, my kids are grown and
Yeah.
what am I going to do? But I just love your story because that just definitely encourages many moms out
Well, I have
there that.
two girls that want to be soccer moms. They say it all the time. They love the fact that I was able to stay at home, and
Mhm.
it was a blessing. It was a gift. Now I did work and did some different things, but when you're moving every 1 to 4 years, it was a different type of, it was changing
Mhm.
and doing something different every time, or part time, or a lot of volunteer work. And it
Mhm.
was a blessing to be able to do that. And my husband would be the first one to say that, part of his success, at least half of his success, is due to me. So, and
Right.
I claim that. But, but I really wanted to kind of oppose the whole feminist message that you can't do that and start back into the career world. I really
Right.
wanted to be able to achieve in 10 years what
Mhm.
it takes some people a whole career to do. I'm a
Mhm.
little ambitious and a little competitive sometimes, but I've got lost time to make up. I am an empty nester, and that's
Mhm.
my goal. Whether I hit it or not, I don't know.
Mhm.
I've hit some of my initial goals, and
Mhm.
I've got one more that I'm working on, and that actually may happen. We'll see. I can tell you more about that later,
Mhm.
but I think that's what women need to hear, right? We don't need to
Yeah.
hear, and anybody needs to hear, not what we can't
Mhm.
do, right?
Mhm. Right.
Not what's lined up against us. Um,
Mhm.
I did have a job that I interviewed for, and I was told that they couldn't hire me because of equal pay. Well, that just made me more determined
Mm.
because they were just going to put me in a starting position. And I'm like, I can run circles around your starting people. Like,
Right.
pay me what you pay them, but let me come in at the job that I'm able to do. But equal pay stopped me from being able to do that. Um,
Mm.
we don't need limitations on us.
Right.
We need to know that we can, if that's door's closed, find another one that's opened. And
Yeah.
if it's not open, then create that door, build it. And I
Mhm.
just think, I see too many people out there that have done that are doing that it gives me hope. And I just refuse to look at people that say what you can't do because of you're a victim or because of this or that.
Mhm.
I just, I don't accept that.
I feel you. Hey, been there, done that. Okay,
And
that's
I'm
a
going to
road going nowhere.
don't tell me no. I'm going to do it. Don't.
So true. Well, that is just amazing. So definitely you are doing it. So we are really excited for you to be here and give us the time to spend with you and hear a lot of your wisdom because I know this has definitely benefited me. I have like pages of notes. I definitely don't like to miss anything when I have a guest on.
Oh, you're
So,
kind.
so
You've been
glad.
encouraging me for a long time because the whole supermom thing, I'm like, yes, God bless her. She is.
Yeah, hey, it's all due to a pen and being around the right people,
I
okay?
love
Because I'm always taking notes and
it.
knowing that I don't know everything at all. Because, I believed for a long time that, I had all the answers.
Uh,
I just didn't have anything to learn. So, needless to say, after much heartache and hard head, doing stuff the wrong way, I've learned now I just am an open book and ready to take notes and learn how to do things better. So
that's
that's the
beautiful.
secret.
Love it.
Awesome. So, well, thank you again. And hopefully, we'll be happy to have you to come back and share more wisdom down the road. And best wishes to you on your move that's coming up.
Thank you so much, Lachelle. I appreciate it.
All right. Well, you have a wonderful day.
You as well. Thank you.
Uh huh. Bye bye.